David Zritsky for the Bond Experience. Hello, Cary.
Hello.
So, Cary, I'm really giddy about this discussion because I've done some reading and I heard not only are you a fan of A View to a Kill, was it really your first Bond movie?
The first one I saw in cinemas, yeah. I was I think I was about 7 years old. I can't remember exactly.
And what kind of impact did that have on you?
Um, I think seeing a movie that was set in the place that I lived was really what kind of turned the fantasy into crossing over into my everyday life. That was surreal. I think as a little kid, just trying to like when you're trying to split that movies aren't real, that there's not really a Zeppelin over the Golden Gate Bridge exploding, that's not news for the day.
No, that's a great point. And I had to ask because as I was thinking about you making this movie, there was a trailer that you put out early on where literally all the fans were just rooting for you, which is where you kind of talked about there are certain tropes and traditions of James Bond. And I know you're an accomplished director. I know you're a professional, but were there times where you just had a fan moment where you looked around and saw DB5s and had a little geek out moment?
Yeah, I mean, definitely. There's a lot of moments throughout the film where you're sitting there, whether it's in M or Q's offices, or out with Daniel as he's fixing his cuff, walking away from a really cool car. Um, on location in Matera, there was a morning I was heading to set, and all nine of our DB5s were lined up on this little piazza as they were doing a photo shoot, and I just wandered on down. I wasn't invited to the photo shoot, but I just had to see them all together at once, and then I ended up posing in a picture there. But uh, uh, love those cars. If I could have taken one home with me in a suitcase, that would have been pretty awesome.
The movie just got better for me automatically. And I've seen it twice already, by the way. It's
Yeah,
absolutely fantastic. So congratulations at the
thank you,
get-go.
thank
Um,
you.
I wondered as I was watching the film, and I'm sure you go through this balancing act, being a fan, but obviously, with such great responsibility with this film, how much do you consider the fan base or the Bond community, so to speak, when you think about choices and decisions to make?
Think about them a lot. I mean, the fans are really important. I think Bond fans are probably the most loyal uh, eh, of all, and you want them to be excited and propelled to be excited for the next Bond film. You don't want to disappoint, basically. So there's so many decisions along the way that are nods, little Easter eggs for people, themes that people will recognize, uh, um, tropes, as you said before. The bigger moments that everyone's waiting to see, how are we going to do? How is Bond going to say Bond, James Bond, the first time? And if we're ever going to tease the audience by a moment where he should say it, then doesn't say it, just says James, call me James, instead of Bond, James
Right.
Bond, and really kind of like tease it out as long as we can. Um, and then those moments that we wait for, like the credit sequence, or the car. What's the car going to do, or what is Q going to give him? That's going to be the special device.
I love that. By the way, I'm actually wearing that device right now.
Oh, you
So
got the Omega.
I do absolutely
Nice.
love it. Has not really come off in the last 6 months, so that's a problem. But I do have to say that you have a really specific approach as a director, not even just this film, to action that I've noticed in all of your work, and I've been following you for a long time, where you put this. The best way to put it is this emotional narrative. So the action is happening, yes, but you have this emotional narrative that's also happening at the same time that makes it a little bit more relatable for the viewer. That had to be purposeful during this film too.
Yeah, and I think that goes down to my first questions and conversations with the stunt coordinators, Lee Morrison, Olivia Schneider, and also with Chris Corbald, the special effects supervisor, just trying to get a sense of how they've done things in the past, and saying, at least for my part, my ethos is that an action sequence that's not propelling the story or the character forward is something that I can tune out of. And I've watched movies where the action sequences, no matter how spectacular they are, if I'm not engaged or invested in the character at that moment, then I don't care. And I certainly, it's my job to make sure people care in these scenes and are leaning forward. So that's just simply, an extension of my need to keep an audience completely suspended from disbelief and on the edge of their seat, and hopefully nails gripping into their thighs or their arms of their chairs wanting to know what's going to happen.
Well, unfortunately, in this case, my wife was with me. She did dig into my arm when the gentleman did the motorcycle jump.
Oh,
So
really?
that was another perfect
Yeah.
moment. But I also noticed that you do, and you've done this in your other work, longer takes. So it
Mhm.
doesn't pull somebody out of the action. I've been in movies where they have short little snippet takes close, far away, and it
Yeah.
sometimes pulls you out of the moment. You like those longer takes, don't you?
Yeah. Yeah. I like the longer takes for several reasons. It shows the audience that you have performers, uh, uh, or it shows the audience you have, whether it's Daniel Craig or someone else performing at the highest levels. To land punch combos plus dodges with a series in a row and make them, literally, like if they're off by a couple centimeters, they don't look right, or you hit somebody. And so just to really be able to do that like 3 or 4 in a row and have the camera just flow with it is so much more interesting than cutting to every perfect punch and dodge. So there's that level of it, but there's also just on a pace and rhythm level, just trying to make things feel like they have moments to breathe, even though it's action, and moments where it's a little more tense and staccato.
Makes sense. It was interesting when you came onto the scene and some people were being introduced to you for the first time through directing of a Bond movie. A lot of people said, this guy could be Bond. Like, he's stylish, forgive me, he's very good looking. You were in Esquire, GQ, etc. So the style aspect of Bond, and I have to ask this because quite frankly, my channel is all about style. How important for you was it to get the style of Bond right?
I think there's a lot to draw from. So it's not like I had to invent it. That's the good thing. Especially even just if you just looked at Daniel, if no other Bonds had existed prior to Daniel Craig's Bond, let's just imagine. It's hard to imagine, but let's imagine, right? Just from Casino Royale, you got the DB5, you got the Spirit yacht at the end in Venice, you have amazing suits, cool Aston Martin cars. There's a lot to draw from just there in terms of like, you know, the best of the best. And just really classic and aesthetically pleasing lines. Whether it's the curves of the DB5, the lines of the yacht in Venice's harbor. There's just a lot to appreciate on a pure aesthetic level. And I think just continuing that tradition in this film was there's some style clothing updates, but otherwise a lot of the stuff around him just goes back to classics.
Yeah, well, not only did
Vintage.
I love the vintage aspect. Well, not only
Yeah.
did you continue in the legendary aspect of Bond with style, but you did it in a movie that is just absolutely fantastic. I enjoyed it. I know people are going to love it. And I just want to take this last moment to thank you for keeping the Bond end up and pushing it forward. And you probably are going to need a rest after all this, I would imagine.
I'm in the middle of shooting now another series, so no rest for the wicked. But thank you. I mean,
No,
it's amazing that we finally get to share it with audiences. We've obviously all been waiting a long time. So
only 5 to 6 years. Who's counting?
yeah, exactly.
Thank you so much, Cary.
All right, thank you, man.
Thanks for watching this episode. If you want to be up on the latest from the Bond experience, just click on this subscribe and subscribe to our channel. You're going to get all the latest and greatest information, plus some exclusive content. And by the way, speaking of content, here's something especially for you, just because we know you. Talk to you soon.